Karen Williams. And I am the co-chair here with co-chair Robin Castro for the Portland Utility Board, and we are going to open our meeting. Under Portland City Code and state law, the Portland Utility Board is holding this meeting electronically. Board members and staff are attending remotely, electronically, or by phone, and we have made the meeting available for the public to listen into the audio broadcast. The meeting is being recorded, and the public will have an opportunity to provide comments during the public comment portion of the meeting, and can also provide written testimony by sending an email to utilityboard@portlandoregon.gov. PUB believes and acts on anti-racist principles. In our meeting spaces and interactions with PUB, every person has the right to their personal perspective, but we stand against wrongful conduct, particularly any conduct that targets people that are made vulnerable by systemic inequities. And for us, this means stepping up as a community when there is wrongful conduct and fostering a space of learning and growth for all of us as PUB members. We do that by speaking up and speaking out. Each person is empowered to maintain the culture of the utility board, and we will focus on the impacted individual or population, condemning conduct, but not individual people.
Hi, my name is Amy Archer-Masters, and I'll quickly run through the meeting guidelines. Please state your name before you speak, and if appropriate, the name of the person you're addressing or that you're addressing the group. The chat box is only viewable by me, your PUB staff, so please limit chats to technical and logistical issues, including signing up for public comment, asking for technical assistance, or reminding us if you've been waiting to speak and have not been called on. The raise hand function is primarily used by the board. We may lower your hand once you begin speaking just to maintain the flow of conversation. During public comment periods, the public can raise their hand and you'll be called on when appropriate. If you're connecting by phone, you may need to press *9 to raise your hand. Videos may be turned on when you're speaking. If desired, it's certainly not required. Please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. And if you're connecting by phone, you can press *6 to mute or unmute. Public comment, as mentioned, will be taken during the comment period early in the meeting. You can sign up through chat with myself or raise your hand during that period. It's also available just prior to any formal board vote after a motion has been made and seconded by board members. I'll pass it back to you, Karen.
Wonderful. So we'll have our usual disclosure of communications, public comment, review of minutes, and then really the bulk of our discussion today is going to be about what happens come July 1st. So our transition to what a new board will look like on July 1st, and how we want to conduct a recruitment for new board members. And we will need to make a decision on the what we want to do about our July meeting or meetings, because one of them is scheduled on a holiday. So we'll probably want to move or reschedule that. And then we'll have a few announcements at the end, and thank yous to departing board members. Okay, well, let's dive in. I know Robin wanted to cover under disclosure of communications, the testimony that she gave yesterday. So let's open with Robin, and then we'll see who else has a disclosure of communications.
This is my first disclosure of communication, and I wasn't sure if this was actually I'm sorry, I wasn't sure if this would be considered under disclosure of communication
or more of an announcement. I didn't mean to characterize it as such, Robin. I just thought this might be as good a time as any.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was able to go before City Council yesterday as a public commenter on behalf of PUB, and read a 3-minute statement that kind of glued everything of our last two conversations together. And yeah, I watched it back and it seemed to go well, but it was actually a pretty quick meeting. And so I hope that all of you were able to read the statement and got a chance to check it out. It was definitely less eventful than round one with Sarah. So I just want to say again, thank you to Sarah for taking the heat round one. And I was definitely a little bit nervous up there. And so I'm thankful for all the people who have previously spoke. And yeah, I felt really empowered that we didn't take the beating lightly, and we went back up and we're like, no, we have something to say, and we're here as a community. So that's all.
Nice, thanks. Again, a million thanks to Robin for doing that. I had sort of last minute stuff occurred, and I couldn't be in that meeting in person, and couldn't call in until about 2:25. And by that time, Robin was just wrapping up a really powerful testimony. So thanks again, Robin, for doing that. All right, I don't see any other hands raised for other disclosures of communications. So let's proceed on to our public comment period. Are there any members of the public present who would like to make a comment to the board? You can raise your hand, hit *9 if you're on the phone, or send a chat to Amy Archer-Mesters if you have a comment you'd like to make.
This is Amy, and I have not received any in advance or any chats in the meeting.
Okay, and I'm also scanning the participant list and not seeing anyone. Carol is here, and other than that, I am not seeing any members of the public. All right, well, let's go on to our June 6th minutes, just our last meeting. And thanks, Amy, you're cranking these minutes out really fast. So thank you for doing that. Are there any corrections or additions or inadvertent omissions that you would like reflected in our minutes from our last meeting? Going once, going twice. All right. Hearing no additions or corrections, our June 6 minutes stand as a record of our June 6 meeting. Thank you. All right, well, let's just dive into it and take a kind of look at some structure to our conversation today. Again, we have 4 board members, Teresa and Tom and Julia and co-chair Robin, whose terms are ending for all intent and purposes today, but at the end of this month. So both Julia and Robin have expressed a desire and a willingness to serve another term. So, one element of what we will want to discuss today is, given Robin and Julia's willingness to serve another term, can we just extend their current terms? Time, oops, sorry, my lights just went off here. Time to be decided, but essentially, now let me stand up so the lights come back on. There we go. Extending their terms for 6 months or until such time as we can conduct a recruitment. So there's that. And other elements that we will want to talk about in terms of our transition is that I'm not sure if this was on the slide before, but my term as co-chair is also coming to an end this month. So I think it would be warranted today to have a conversation about what we might want to do about that. If Robin's extends her term and we decide to extend Robin's term, we could also assume that Robin's co-chair term would extend. But anyway, mine is definitely coming to an end on June 30th. And let's see, I think, and then the third element that we'd want to spend some time talking about is how we would use the time in the next few months. Should two board members extend their terms, we would need to consider what that means for quorum and how we will sort of conduct our decision making and that sort of thing. Not that sort of thing, how we will conduct our decision making over the next few months in this kind of interim state, because currently to have quorum, we would need to have 6 voting members. And if we have 2 fewer members on our board, that could be tricky, right? Given summer vacations and work schedules and that sort of thing. I think that about covers it. So let me open the floor to people's thoughts and comments about extending the terms of 2 of our departing board members. What do people think about that? Any concerns, thoughts in support of about that extension? And certainly Robin and Julia, please, and I see your hand, Chris. I also want to invite Robin and Julia to say anything they would like to say about that, because I may have overstated or mischaracterized and your willingness to continue serving. So I apologize if I didn't quite accurately reflect that. Please go ahead, Chris.
I'm in support of extending them for the next 6 months. It seems like a good solution. And then we just need to adjust a quorum proportionally to what it is now, is what I'm thinking. I can also help with the facilitation if that would be helpful in the future. I'm not signing up to be co-chair. I think it would be difficult for me being co-chair of being the labor representative, since we already have a representative to the council. I think that could be problematic, but I am very willing to help facilitate if that helps with the burden of being a co-chair, that there would be someone to support.
Much appreciated, Chris. Thanks for saying that. Thanks for offering that. What are you thinking, Robin?
Yeah. Well, I'm just wanted to say a couple things. I definitely am down for the 6-month extension. I'm even very interested in a full secondary term, because I feel like I'm actually just now getting to understand everything and kind of see it from a greater perspective. And I'm like, we actually really need a handful of people with a second term perspective, just because a lot of our projects are like 5+ years. And there's things that have been in the works that I haven't even seen yet. And so I definitely wanted to, I definitely want an extension. And with that, I was hoping that because I've only been a co-chair for 6 months, that I would be inclined to, I think it was like at least a year of co-chairing, I was hoping. And so that I would have an extension as well as continue to be one of the co-chairs.
Heather, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I just wanted to voice my support for extending terms, however folks want to do it, and adjusting quorum as necessary.
Alexis, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I will just echo what my fellow board members have said. I'm fully supportive of extending terms, and Robin, if that includes your interest in being co-chair, then I'm supportive of that as well. And then it sounds like adjusting our quorums as we can figure out the future makes a lot of sense. So I'm supportive of what others have said here. Thank you.
Yeah, Robin.
I wanted to jump in and say one last thing. I believe Sarah said that she was not going to be able to renew her term. And so to my understanding, where our quorum adjustment is also an adjustment to ex officio members currently. Would that be an understanding?
No, it's just the quorum is of voting members is the requirement. There is a requirement for subcommittee work that there need to be 3 members, and that can be any members. If there's, work that's delegated to a subcommittee, but for official voting decisions, it requires the number of 6 voting members out of the 11 positions currently.
Okay, so I think I want clarifying. We have a certain amount of ex officio members, and one of them is stepping down. And because we are pushing back recruitment, am I to understand that we're going to have just one? We're going to be down an ex officio member out of our regular number of 3.
Typically, the bureaus do the identification of the ex officio. I mean, not typically. It is how the process is established, is that the bureaus do the work internally to identify their ex officios, and then they bring that information to the board, just so that you can consider it, I guess, feasibly. If there were concerns about an ex officio that was brought forward or didn't feel like the right balance, I suppose you could provide feedback to the bureau leadership. But generally, it's them trying to find, the right folks based on what the work plan items are, as well as interest and growth opportunities for their staff. So they kind of balance all of that in identifying. We've actually been operating one short. Typically there's 3 ex officios, and BES wasn't able to identify an ex officio last year. But typically they, there's a balance between the labor and non-labor positions, as well as a mix between the 2 bureaus. So I would expect that to still move forward. The timing may be a little bit off, because usually we dovetail that with our recruitment, but it never needs to be, because it's not part of our recruitment process. It's just the back end of when we take it to council. But really those appointments just need to go through the council process that's required. So once we get new ex officios identified, whether it's Joe continuing and 1 or 2 others being identified, then we can bring that back to you all and take it through the official process. It doesn't need to wait for the full recruitment.
And just thank you for that. And for clarity, it sounds like after today's meeting, we will have 1 official ex officio on the board out of the 3 that we would have usually.
Technically, their terms, their appointments also end June 30th. It's just that often they are reappointed. They can be reappointed up to 3 times. So I'm not sure. I see Joe's hand raised.
Yeah,
so I'll
looks like Joe might have
defer to
something
Joe
to say about
first
that.
if he wants to comment, and then I have just a couple more things to add after he speaks.
Yeah, thank you. Joe Spada, ex officio, Water Bureau staff. When I was appointed to my position, I was in a represented position, and now I am not. We got clearance to allow me to fill out the rest of this term, which I believe was to end June 30th. So it was my understanding that I would not continue. However, I can have discussions as to whether or not they'll want me to continue serving. That said, I am taking full paternity leave for 3 months starting July 10th. So I will be, even if I am extended, I will be missing for that amount of time. I just wanted to make that clear. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you for the reminder about that, Joe. I had forgotten that's something that we can have conversation between you and your bureau leadership, because part of that reason was the balance between the labor and non-labor. But with Sarah stepping down, that also takes that piece away, unless there's a desire for, some other program staff to be involved. Just a couple more things. Robin mentioned the co-chair term. I did just want to let folks know that typically co-chair terms have been 2 years, sometimes, based on interest or availability, or just trying to stagger the terms. You have made 1 year appointments, or sometimes 6 months in the circumstances where Karen's been willing to extend. But generally the goal had been to stagger the terms so that you always have some consistency and continuation, as well as new perspective kind of stepping into that role. So it's kind of a balance of those two pieces, but the Robin's term has been shorter only because her actual appointment term ended June 30th. So she couldn't be appointed as a co-chair longer than she was appointed as a voting member. So that's the only reason for that mismatch during this current cycle. So assuming that she's extended, then it would be natural based on the interest for an extension in co-chair term as well. And ideally, potentially maybe more than the 6 months. So I guess that's the other piece to put on the table is how long of an extension. Just for clarity, there is, the code does actually specify that appointed members can continue serving in their role until replacements have been recruited and appointed. Of course, that's typically because the appointments line up pretty close to the end of their terms, but it is written in a way that the continuation could happen. I think the plan from pub staff perspective was to formalize any extension through the process of communication and approval through the commissioner in charge and the mayor's office, so that it has that other element as well, that it's a formal extension. And particularly if you're talking about more than 6 months just until new appointments happen. If you were going to do a 12-month or a full 3-year term, then we certainly would want to go through that formal process. Yeah.
Right. And I think, thanks for bringing that up, Amy, because I think that does if we do put a number on the term extension, and if that is more than just a few months, I think that does have implications for the recruitment that we ultimately end up conducting, say, next fall. So let me just say it this way. If it was the board's will to motion for or suggest extending, well, essentially for all intents and purposes, just reappointing or to recommend, right? We don't do the appointment, we do the recommendation, but recommend reappointing Julia and Robin to another term, presumably 3 years, then though we wouldn't be recruiting for those seats come the fall. Does that make sense to folks? So I think however we decide to structure an extension or reappointment or recommending reappointment of Robin and Julia, that does have implications for how we would conduct a recruitment in the fall. So anyway, just be kind of thinking about that. Okay, what other questions or concerns or thoughts do people have about this business of extending terms of two folks? Yes, Tom, please go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I agree with people extending, and even though it looks like I am leaning even more toward not extending than I was when I talked to Amy. So, but I do agree for whoever might do it.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Thanks for that. Okay, and I do want to, I just want to, oh no, there's Teresa. Great. I was going to say Teresa mentioned she would be late, so I just wanted to make sure that we weren't speaking about Teresa without Teresa being present, but Teresa is here. So hi, Teresa.
Hi. Sorry, I'm also driving, so you might hear some noises. But yeah, I agree with the other two members being reappointed. I personally won't be able to extend my term, so do want to apologize for that.
We're sorry that's not possible, Teresa, for sure, but thanks for considering it.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, there's like a lot of personal matters happening right now and I need to look for a job. So yeah, but best of wishes to everyone, everyone who decided to stay. And yeah, thank you.
Okay, so it feels to me like we could make a decision. Maybe we sort of, I'm suggesting that we sort of do one decision at a time or one recommendation at a time, meaning talk about either extension or, again, recommending just plain old reappointment, if that's the way y'all want to go. And again, fully that Julia and Robin are both willing to be reappointed for another full term. I recommend we kind of cover that first. And then I think talk about quorum and co-chairs. That's my suggestion, just to simplify matters. And I do want to make sure, because I know Julia is here. I mean, Julia, again, we're talking about you. So I want to make sure you have the floor to, yeah, say your piece about all this. And are we accurately reflecting your willingness and interest in continuing to serve?
Yes, I'm so sorry. I got a call at the beginning of the meeting from a legislator that I needed to take. So I was like, cool, we're talking about me, but I gotta go. But I'm back now. But yeah, I am also very busy during that legislative session, particularly around that time of year. And I serve on another commission as well, but I am really, I feel like it takes a while to get your legs underneath you in this position, and I feel like I'm starting to get it. And I want to continue to serve, and I know that like in the times between sessions, I will be able to really diligently make it to all the meetings for the full time and really participate at a higher level, and just know that like there are going to be times during legislative session, next year is a short session, thank goodness, where I'll be a little like less engaged. But I do feel like even with that kind of impediment, that it's still worthwhile for me to be on this commission and to continue serving and to participate at the highest level that I can, you know, throughout the 3 years that are coming. So I'm glad that people support me continuing to serve, and that everyone is patient and gentle with me when it is really, you know, busy. But I'm excited to continue moving forward in this position if you will have me. So thank you.
Terrific. Thanks for chiming in, and apologies for not being a little bit more in tune with, hey, Julia hasn't spoken up yet. maybe she
Well, it
got
would have been
called aside.
bad because like I was literally on the phone with the legislator. I did eventually realize I needed to tell Amy that I was out, but then but anyway, like there was a few minutes where I was like, oh no, I don't know what's going on. And they came back and was like, but anyway, we're good. Everything's good. Thank you.
Good. Wonderful. All righty. So yeah, let's, I just want, in the interest of kind of moving us along, this wasn't something necessarily that we had planned on. Sorry, lights again. Lights come back on. Shoot. That wasn't something that we had necessarily planned on or making a decision about and taking a vote, but it feels to me like we should, you know, make have a formal recommendation on extending terms or reappointing. Again, that's another option, recommending reappointment. Does that sound right to you, Amy? It just sort of feels like a formal vote.
Yeah, I think it would be great if there could be a formal vote, as you said, to recommend reappointment for the 2 members who are interested, and And then you can do a second decision around if they're willing, having it be a full reappointment versus a shorter term, depending on how pub member wants to make a motion.
Okay. Tom, do you feel emotion in you there?
I do. I'd like to make a motion that we offer an extension of terms to those people who want it. So I'm trying to take the personalities out because we're not actually picking based on personality. We're picking based on the concept that people, because maybe Teresa or I might change our mind in the next 10 days or 15 days, but I don't think so. And I think I should, well, I'll leave it to a motion. So I make the motion that we agree that extensions should be offered to those 4 members who would like to extend.
Or to those members who would like to extend?
Well, it's only 4 of them. Yeah, well, yes, to those out of the 4 who would like to extend. Certainly not the other 6.
Right. Very clear. Thanks for that. And Robin, is that a second, or did you have a clarification that you wanted to the motion?
I kind of wanted to amend that. It felt like,
well, let's hey, hold that thought for just a second, because technically we should have a second to a motion
okay.
before we amend. Let me just see if there's a second to that motion.
I second.
Heather seconds that. Okay, thank you. Or I'm sorry, was that Alexis? I think that was Alexis.
It was, that's fine.
Okay, thanks, Alexis. Okay, so motion on the floor to offer extension to the any of the 4 members whose terms are expiring. And let's have discussion on that, and sort of in the context of that, there could also be an amendment to that motion. So since I know you have an amendment, Robin, why don't we go ahead and see how?
Yeah, I'll jump in for discussion. I was gonna say it definitely feels like Teresa and Tom are not, like, they're just vibing that they don't necessarily want to renew. They absolutely have the capacity to, but if it feels like we're gonna end up sending some sort of recommendation. I think, what is it? City Council needs the recommendation specifically for co-chair. It feels like this motion should actually just focus on Julia and I, and that it would be a motion to renew us both for a second full term, while also recommending that we are both placed as co-chairs. Just because it feels like Tom and Teresa are a lot closer to no than closer to maybe. And that's just based on what they've said today.
Yeah, thanks for that, Robin. That sounds to me like more than an amendment. That sounds like a whole different motion. So let's, I guess, hold that thought, but I think we need to kind of finish discussion and voting on the motion that's on the floor now. And then if that goes down, then we can introduce the much more specific motion that you suggested. Chris, you had your hand raised. Did you have a?
Well, I was gonna agree with Robin. So if we're not wanting to go there, then I'll wait.
Okay. Alrighty. So is there any more discussion then on the motion that is on the table, which is to offer or recommend extending terms of essentially any of the 4 members that are interested, period? Is there any more discussion on that? Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I agree with Robin's concept, but I think it would be good to vote this particular motion first, and then go ahead and sort of identify and get confirmed by me and Teresa in some formal manner at this meeting would be fine. that we are not and that Robin and Julia are, and then vote on that as a separate, so that we keep it so that it's not, there's not any way that somebody could misunderstand that there was any favoritism or anything like that. So basically the concept is, yes, it's open to anybody. And then we vote on, okay, who wants to do it, or however we structure that. That's my reason for making the motion that I did.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, Tom, and explanation. Any more discussion on that? All right, motion is on the floor. It's been seconded and discussed. Is there any public comment before we vote on this motion?
I'm not sure if Carol will want to make comment verbally, but Carol did send a chat to just say that she recommends clear multiple motions, starting with getting more specific. My read of it was that it was kind of in agreement with some of the comments that were just made to kind of do the motions each individually.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Carol, and thanks, Amy, for reading that. So seeing no other public comment, let us proceed with voting. Since I'm facilitating and co-chairing, I'd like to go last. So let's proceed to Robin for a vote.
Yeah, this vote seems pretty harmless. I'll vote yes to allow whoever wants to extend the ability to extend.
This is Chris. I vote no.
Heather, you're up next.
This is Heather. I vote yes.
Who's next? Lorraine?
Yes.
This is Tom. I vote yes.
This is Julia. I vote yes.
This is Alexis. I vote yes.
Are you able to voice Teresa, or are you driving?
Yes, driving, but this is Teresa. I vote yes.
And I think I'm up last, right? Okay, and this is Karen Williams, and I vote yes as well. So that motion passes, and Robin, or perhaps Chris, since Robin is, anyway, let's make a more specific motion then. It sounded like that was the will of the board, is to specifically name individuals who are willing to extend their terms and make the recommendation that they be either extended or reappointed. Again, that's up to the board, how long you want that extension / reappointment to be. So does anyone feel and I would suggest that we, again, leave the co-chair as another separate motion. That would just be my recommendation, to keep things as clean as possible.
This is Amy, and just to be clear, co-chair, there is language in bylaws about that process, and that takes place at the first July meeting. So I think there can be discussion and kind of agreement about what the plan is, but we do need to put some public notice out about the co-chair recommendation.
Good reminder. Thank you. Okay, so just regarding who we're recommending extend and for how long, would someone like to make that motion?
Yeah, this is Robin. I make a motion to reappoint Julia and myself for a full term.
Second.
Okay. Great. Clear motion, clear second. Thank you so much, everyone. Discussion on the motion. Go ahead, Tom.
Thank you. This is Tom. I just wanted to state the obvious that for myself and Teresa, who are not named, that we, or at least I, do not want an extension. It might be helpful if Teresa wanted to make that comment at this particular point as well. So that's what my suggestion.
I would like to not extend my term, so yeah.
Any more? Thanks for that, Tom and Teresa. Is there any more discussion? Again, the motion is recommending extension and recommending extension for another full term for Robin Castro and Julia DeGraw. That is the motion. And I just want to remind the board that is in effect recommending reappointment of Julia and Robin, and therefore any recruitment that we conduct in the fall would be for 2 people, not 4. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
It would be for
everyone.
3 people because we have 1 vacancy as well. So there would still be 3 to
Right.
be recruited for in fall, which
Because of-
most years, I mean, if
because
you
of
have
Alex, right.
terms staggered properly, the goal was to have 3 to 4 each year that you're having turnover and bringing in new perspective. So it lines up with that.
Yeah, thanks for that, Amy. And just again, not to divert us too much, but that's a reminder to me and to the board as a whole that we have been operating with 1 vacancy since I'm losing track now who stepped down first, if it was Kale or Alex. But yeah, we have been operating at a vacancy for some time. Yeah. Okay. No more discussion on the motion. Going once, going twice. And is there any public comment on the motion to extend the term of Robin and Julia DeGraw for a full term? Right, let us proceed then. Let's call the question, proceed with that vote. And again, I'd like to go last. So starting with Robin.
I vote yes.
This is Chris. I vote yes.
This is Heather. I vote yes.
This is Lorena. I vote yes.
This is Tom. I vote yes.
Excuse me, this is Julia. I vote yes.
This is Alexis. I vote yes.
This is Teresa. I vote yes.
Okay, sorry, I'm up next, right? I lost track.
Yes, you're next, Karen.
Okay, I vote yes. Okay. So that is 8 in favor, 0 opposed. Nice work, folks. Thank you, Julia and Robin, for being willing to do that. And thanks everyone for your support. Okay, so on that, with Amy's reminder about the need for public comment on co-chair. so those of us that will be coming back in July, we will place on the agenda the folks that are interested in co-chairing. And we have heard Robin's interest in that. Is there anyone else who would, and thank you, Chris, for your offer to facilitate, but also heard very clearly that you don't think being a co-chair is appropriate. So is there anyone else that would like their name placed on the July agenda, whenever we have that July meeting, for interest in co-chair? And then we could take a vote on that in July. Doesn't look like at this time.
And for anybody who's considering it, it was going to be one of the announcements at the end, but this is Amy, and I'll just say I'm available to answer any questions that folks have, as are the current co-chairs, to provide any information about, what it's meant for them, and what I've seen in the past, as well as any support for co-chairs. So we would just need interest a week prior to the July meeting where that is going to take place, so that I can have it announced on the public agenda. So if you're not ready to say it today, but you're still considering it, you still have time and you can let me know. So please do reach out. I'd love to chat with you.
Indeed, yes. So you're, if you don't, you're still on the hook for considering it, everyone. And I would encourage anyone to consider it. Yes, it is a bit more time than being a pub, voting pub member, and it is time that is very valuably spent. I don't think that's really a word, but I think having the opportunity to confer with another person about strategy and direction, and being able to have those more, I don't know, I guess, let's just say frank conversations with staff and bureau leadership, that's really helpful. And I think having two people in that role really makes it more, well, let's see. I think it brings a broader perspective, which is always good. And I just think it makes the board's work more impactful when it has the, two folks that are sort of on point, I guess, to have those kind of more strategic conversations and bring back recommendations and guidance to the board members. I just think it makes the board more effective and impactful. So that's my opinion as current co-chair. So please consider it, and please let Amy know in the next few weeks before our July meeting of your interest. Okay, so we do need to make another decision about quorum. So Amy has laid out essentially what that would look like structurally. It's really not our decision to make about reducing quorum, because it's in code that we need to have 6 members to, conduct a meeting, to even hold a meeting. So again, we will have 6 members, 6 voting members, I should say, in July. But if anyone needs to be absent or goes on vacation or has a work commitment or something, we won't be able to hold a meeting. So it looks like staff recommendation is that we request an exception to quorum until we complete our recruitment. Amy, could you say a little bit what would that request look like? To whom would we submit that request?
Well, what I was hoping, and I still need to work some of this out internally, but I wanted to make sure that the pub was supportive of it or had a sense, because the alternative is we don't do anything, and it just means if we only have 5 people show up, we won't be able to hold a meeting, or certainly won't be able to make any decisions. So there sometimes code exceptions have been made just with acknowledgement that, okay, there aren't appointments. And, if there's agreement with the commissioner in charge and the mayor's office, maybe just a memo to the file saying until such time that, the board is fully appointed, we accept quorum of X number in order to make decisions. So what that specific language could say, I think I can work on with leadership and the city attorney's office, but only if the board wants to. If you have 8 members, chances are most of the time you likely have 6 people show up, but on occasion you may not.
Right. So for clarity of, in terms of the decisions we're reaching today, would you recommend, Amy, that we essentially vote on requesting that exception?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
that's what I would suggest the recommendation would be.
Okay, and if we do that, then we also, as your slide prompts us, we need to make a decision about what we're recommending quorum be if it's not 6. Do we want to say 5, getting down to 4? Is that getting too skimpy, not enough voices in the room, folks at the table to make decisions?
Yes.
Would love to hear
exactly.
people's thoughts about that. Go ahead, Robin.
Yeah, so I was trying to figure out who's staying and who's going. And so if I'm counting everyone right, we will have 7 total pub members, because Teresa and Tom are leaving today, and we lost Alex and Kale prior. And so if 7 is the total number of pub members that we have,
8,
that we'll have.
actually.
Who am I missing?
So
I feel so
I
bad.
went back a slide because Alexis, Bob, Chris, Heather, Karen, and Lorraine are all still in the middle of their terms. And then if Robin and Julia, assuming council agrees, are reappointed, then that would leave 8 members instead of the 11. So the quorum of 6 is based off of voting members of 11.
Okay. Yeah, I think I was mixing up ex officios for a second. Well, if it's 8 people, I would still want the ability for us to have, lives and miss meetings from time to time without it impacting movement horrifically. And so it kind of feels like maybe a simple majority with this one, maybe 5 out of 8. And that would, and that way it's not just a 50-50 split, and worst case scenario, 1 or 2 people can miss a meeting and we can still have consensus. We would definitely need consensus in those meetings where we have less people. But I think it'd be easier to navigate with a 5-person quorum.
Well said, Robin. Would you, okay, I don't want to rush things too much. Are there other, before we, I guess, proceed to a formal decision recommendation on this, what other thoughts do people have about quorum numbers? Go ahead, Tom.
I just wanted to clarify that I am here today, and I do feel I am still a member until June 30th. So I want to try and act that way at this meeting that I am a member. I'm just curious as to how much work it is to change the city code, because does that have to go before city council and through the commissioners and everything? And is that actually more trouble than having recruitment in the fall? So it's, but I think what Robin just said, I agree with, that if it's not going to, if that's the way to go, then 5 sounds reasonable to me. I agree with it.
I was not suggesting changing code at this point because we wouldn't want to change it and then have to go back. I was just recommending that you recommend kind of an informal exception that the council members agreed to, who are responsible for pub, so that it's in the record, kind of with a formal acknowledgement of what the operating will be.
Okay, good.
Terrific. Any more thoughts or concerns or questions on that? And if not, maybe, Robin, I might ask that you put your suggestion in the form of a motion, and let's see if that has a second.
Yeah, and as it looks like quorum is 6 and we're only going down 1, I can motion that we request an exception to quorum to be reduced to 5.
This is Alexis. I second.
Thanks a lot. Let's just see, check quick on public comment. This is quorum can be kind of a dicey thing for public comment. So I just want to make sure if Carol has any public comment on this or recommendations, I want to open the floor for public comment.
Carol sent a message saying she would support a quorum of 5, as she believes it should be more than 50% of the board.
Mm-hmm. Okay, nice. Thanks for that input, Carol. All right, is there any further discussion? Seeing no hands raised. Let's move on with our vote. And Robin, if you could kick us off on the voting.
I vote yes.
This is Chris. I vote yes.
This is Heather. I vote yes.
This is Lorena. I vote yes.
This is Tom. I vote yes.
This is Julia. I vote yes.
This is Alexis. I vote yes.
This is Teresa. I vote yes.
And Karen Williams votes yes. All right. Now, I think our next item of business then is how are we going to fill these? How are we going to fill the 3 vacancies? So I think I just want to clear. We have one more decision we need to make, just keeping an eye on time, and I think we're doing fine. We do need to make a decision about the July meeting. I'm almost wondering if, maybe we should do that, since that's kind of our last decision while we have voting members.
Yeah, that's a good idea, because I know Julia is about to jump off too, so it might be good to get her feedback, because she has to drop off like within a minute or 2.
Within a
Like
minute.
literally
Okay.
2 minutes. I'm really sorry. I have to run the Oregon Conservation Network meeting that starts at noon, and I run it. I have to go. So yeah.
Yep. What throw in your 2 cents then, Julia, about a meeting in July. What's your preference?
I feel like people should not have to meet on a holiday.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
That's
Well, yes. I'm sorry to throw my opinion in there.
no. Like, so, I mean, the debate is whether we cancel it entirely or reschedule.
Mhm. Well, and if we reschedule, if we want to just try and squeeze one meeting in July instead of, scheduling is hard enough as it is.
I think that it might be worth exploring making the 20th meeting slightly longer rather than trying to do a whole additional meeting. I would err on the side of canceling, just gonna know how scheduling is. I'm running a 42 organization coalition meeting in like a minute, so I know what scheduling is like. So I would be open to possibly trying to extend the time of the 20th meeting, but I think canceling the 4th rather than trying to reschedule something, especially during the like vacation season, seems reasonable to me.
Okay. Thanks for that. And we will, if you do need to leave, Julia, we'll still have quorum, but thanks.
I don't have a super strong opinion on this. I'll do what folks want to do. I do think I am on vacation on the 20th, and that's just a thing, but I might be able to go to some place with internet connection, or I might miss, but that's just, that's life. But I gotta run to my other meeting. I apologize that I can't vote on this and participate in the discussion further.
All right, take care. Chris, what are you thinking?
I'm voting we just cancel. I'm super busy with year end because I'm one of the accountants for the city, and that is our busiest week of the year. So canceling would be much better for me, please.
Heather?
Yeah, my preference is to cancel the July 4th meeting altogether.
Well, why don't let's take a vote on that first. Because I think for public process and everything, it should be very clear that we've just canceled that. And then we can have a separate conversation about what we want to do with the remaining meeting in July. So would anyone like their name attached to a motion to cancel the July 4th meeting?
I put forth a motion to cancel July 4th meeting.
Okay. Any second for that?
This is Heather. I second that.
Heather, I was gonna say, something tells me Heather has a second in her on that one. Public comment on the motion to cancel the July 4th meeting. Hearing and seeing no public comment, proceed to a vote. And I'll kick this one off. Voting yes. Karen Williams voting yes.
Robin Castro voting yes.
Chris Richard voting yes.
Heather voting yes.
Lorraine Wilson voting yes.
Tom Lipton voting yes.
Alexis Wright voting yes.
Teresa Huang voting yes.
And Karen Williams. Oh, I already voted, sorry. And we've lost Julia, but we still have quorum, so that motion carries. Terrific, thank you very much. So now let's talk about what we want to do with the July 20th meeting. And it might be helpful to just look at a couple of the items that are sort of out there pending for us to discuss on July 20th and see if, or I should say at a meeting in July. And we had hoped to hear from Quisha Light on debt recovery and financial assistance update. And can you remind me, Amy, if Quisha is available on July 20th? I couldn't.
She is not. She is out of the
Okay.
office starting July 17th. So
Okay.
That's one of the reasons that I had put some tentative dates out there, was just because I had checked with her about some of the ideas that the co-chairs had about some alternatives if you canceled the 20th and did it, on the 11th or 13th, for example.
Yeah.
And so, but the other topic that at least a pub member had recommended sooner than later is the Water Bureau treatment plant update. And I did confirm with the Bureau staff that the timing of that lines up well with some actions that are moving forward this month. They'll have reports going to council and some other items that will be happening. And so July could be good timing for an update and discussion related to the filtration plant. So that would be an alternative topic if it moved forward on the 20th, or if we changed the date but had time for both topics.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks for that overview. So maybe we could go back to the slide then with the, oh yeah, that's great. With the potential dates. So again, options that are out there, keep the meeting on the 20th. There's another option to maybe extend the time, or, you know, that, so keep it on the 20th and extend the time or not. If we meet on the 20th, we will likely be talking about filtration plant updates, and the financial assistance and debt recovery would need to wait until August. So there's that. And but if you all would really like, if the 20th doesn't work for you, and or you would really like to hear about debt recovery and financial assistance updates from Quisha Light, then a couple other options are July 11th or July 13th. What are people's druthers on that? Let's see, go ahead, Chris.
I would be interested in the debt recovery, especially with the budget issues we're having right now. I think it would be really important for us to know what's going on with debt recovery.
Okay.
And I would be willing to either do the 11th or 13th to accommodate that.
Okay. And I think we were thinking, just again for members to consider as their schedules and stuff, that we were still thinking about that 11 to 12:30 time frame on either the 11th or 13th. Does
Yes,
that,
we can make that work.
okay.
But we had also talked about the possibility, because the 11th is the Tuesday. So if the afternoons
okay.
work for folks on Tuesdays, that
Okay.
would just be pushing back the July meeting by a week. So
Got it.
tentatively, we had actually talked about having the 3:30 on the 11th or the 11 on the 13th, but
Okay.
we could make any of them work, I think, depending on people's availability.
Okay. Good. Thanks for that. Robin, what are you thinking? And then Alexis.
Yeah. Just speaking as someone who's kind of had their life just shaken up a little bit recently, I would actually be in favor of not rescheduling the July 4th meeting, keeping the July 20th meeting. And my initial thought was like maybe extend the July 20th meeting. But I realized it's middle of the day in a work week that at this point, it almost feels like I would rather just keep the current July 20th schedule, focus on the Portland Water Bureau filtration, because I believe they wanted to do like a 30-minute presentation, which at that point, let's just make the entire meeting about it and have a conversation and get really in depth. And so I don't know that I would be in favor of shifting anything. And I think I would prefer stability in the scheduling at this point.
Appreciate that. Alexis?
Thanks. I am in support of rescheduling to the 11th. I also would really, just because of our conversations around budget, et cetera, would be really interested in a presentation sooner rather than later on the debt recovery and financial assistance. So July 11th at the 3:30 time slot is preferable to me. I'm not able to extend one of those Thursday meetings, having it in the middle of the day. I can't extend that. So that's my preference.
And thanks for that, Alexis. And can I just ask, if we didn't extend the meeting on the 13th, if we just kept it to our usual 11 to 12:30, is that
on the 20th?
On the 13th? If we
rescheduled for the 13th.
Right.
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Just a preference for the Tuesday.
Sure.
It's easier.
Sure. Yeah, no, hear that. That's good to know. Okay, I think we need to need to take a vote on, really, again, just for clarity and certainty. I mean, we could say, well, let's just leave it open to a poll and then we'll decide. But I think we've got all the folks here that are that are going to need to fill out a poll, and it just seems a little cleaner to me. Let's just make a call, make a decision today what we're going to do. So we've taken care of, we're not going to reschedule. We're going to keep one meeting in July. So we've made that decision and we just need to decide what date we're going to have that on. So we've heard two proposals for July 20th, or sorry, I've lost track. I think we've heard two proposals, one proposal for July 20th and two proposals for either the 11th or the 13th, mostly based on what the topics that we're able to discuss at each of those meetings are. So somebody make a motion for one of those two things, and let's just take a vote on it.
I make a motion for us to have the meeting on the 11th at 3:30 on debt recovery and financial assistance.
I second.
Okay. Public comment on holding a meeting on July 11th at 3:30. All right, let us go to a vote on that. I'm going to go last on this one and I'll kind of explain in a second why that is, but can we go to you, Robin, to kick off the vote?
Yeah, this is Robin Castro. As someone who took off the 20th, I'm going to vote no on this one.
This is Chris. I vote yes.
This is Heather. I vote yes.
This is Lorraine. I vote yes.
This is Tom. I vote yes.
This is Alexis. I vote yes.
This is Teresa. I vote yes.
Okay, and Karen, I'm actually voting no, because I have a conflict on the 11th, and now I know Robin may as well. So anyway, that opens up a facilitation question, so you might get your chance, Chris.
And Bob has joined us as well, so.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I'm on.
Oh,
I
well,
vote yes. Sorry to be late.
no, that's okay. All right, so motion carries 8-2. So our next meeting will be on the 11th at 3:30, and we may need to get a volunteer to facilitate that. I'm squishy on whether I'm available on that day. Actually, I'm not going to be the co-chair anymore in July. So now that I think about it, well, actually, I guess I will have to be for that.
I can facilitate that day if needed. Karen, no problem.
Yay. Thanks, Chris. Thank you. Fantastic. All right. So I think we have just a few. So I think that's we've checked off everything we needed to decide today. Have I missed anything, Amy?
I think you got through it all.
Okay, let's I'd like to take just 5 minutes for the discussion on transition. And then we'll come back for announcements at 12:20. Let's see, let me just think for a second about how I want to open this.
Lorraine's got her hand up, by the way.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, Lorraine, please go ahead.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about the recruitment process in November. And I'm not volunteering. Let me put that out first. About taking some time between now and then to probably have a community forum, reach out to nonprofits and stuff, and have a presentation on, you know, what is pub, what is the requirement. So at least we give people, we able to reach out and share a little bit. So when the actual application time come, it's not going to be as intimidating. Just a suggestion.
And a fantastic suggestion at that. Thanks. Thanks for that, Lorraine. That's a perfect kickoff. I think let's just take a couple minutes and think sort of what else, if we are now envisioning a recruitment for to fill 3 vacancies, you know, sometime in the fall, so that we could have a full pub with 11 members come January of 2024. What else is on people's minds about what we should, so how do we put that in place? What else do we need to be considering? How do we want to structure, you know, a recruitment subcommittee, or which is what we've done in the past, right? Is to have a group of, say, 3 members, maybe an ex officio as well, that actually review applications, make recommendations to the full board. So what else would people like to get out there right now that we should be considering over the next couple months of the summer for how we want the recruitment to look? And think about too that I'm sorry, Teresa, please go ahead.
Sorry, I know I am getting off the board, so I don't know if this is a good idea to suggest, but
I think it's a very good idea because we want your wisdom. We want your wisdom before you go.
Thank you for your words. But yeah, like I think one of the things that previously one of the outreach staff has recommended before is, you know, if we're doing any kind of outreach and if we're trying to diversify, the good way is to, you know, be present at events or places that where people already are, and rather than only relying on inviting people to our events. So I was wondering if any current members would be interested in volunteering their time in addition to pub time to, you know, look for a few community events or spaces and go and just, you know, talk about what pub is and do recruitment. I know that's like extra work, but just in case if anyone ever feels inclined.
Yeah, and I mean, and Teresa, that is something that, you know, brought us you, right? Was the pub member that was anyway, just reached out within their organization and said, hey, you know, we'd really like to have, you know, engaged community members who have relationships with, you know, the broadest possible, you know, representation of community. And, you know, they reached out to you and you were willing to serve for 3 years. So yeah, that community connection is vital, because we are the community, right? And we want to be representative of all aspects of our community, and especially folks that don't have, as Teresa, somewhat to Teresa's point, that don't have the time to come to a lot of meetings, right? They got enough going on in their lives. They don't have time to be at a meeting during the day, during the workday. Yeah, what else? What else are people, what do people think about the idea of, not today, but you know, pulling together 2 or 3 folks? I guess want to gauge it, you know, no commitments, no pressure or anything, but do people think it is a good idea? Let me just put it that way, to have 2 or 3 folks that can really focus on recruitment and outreach, and as you know, Lorraine said, sort of making the application process accessible and understandable, casting the net widely. What do people think about investing that level of time for 2 or 3 months, summer into fall, as we're working on recruitment? What are you thinking, Alexis?
Yeah, I just wanted to support the idea of creating a little subcommittee to work on this, in terms of even developing some materials that we can, you know, to either present at other meetings or share with, you know, local organizations, et cetera. And then I really like the idea of doing a review of our application materials to ensure that it's accessible to a broad range of folks. So just wanted to say my support for creating a little subcommittee to start thinking about this, and then bringing that to the full board for approval. And identifying some events that we could go to as well, I think would be another kind of action item or activity for that little subcommittee to work on.
Mhm. So I'm gonna, thanks, Goldan. Love to hear from you. I just want to recognize Lorraine, and then we'll come back to Goldan, Commissioner Staff.
I support that notion. Oh, I second that emotion. And I will volunteer to be on that committee.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks, Lorraine. Thanks so much. Splendid. Hi, Goldan.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. It's nice to hear from you all, and I've just been listening in. Just wanted to know, in terms of recruitment, how Commissioner's office can be helpful, whether it's our staff helping you with events, or helping to get the word out, and whether or not, you know, I'm always sensitive to how much influence you all, or how much you want to hear from us, but just want to let you know that we are there and here to help you with recruitment in any way you need. And so just wanted to ask you what you all need from us in terms of supporting recruitment.
Super appreciate that, Goldan. I think if anybody has any thoughts right now, please share, but I hope we can keep letting you know, Goldan, over the next few months. So yeah, I just, speaking as a board member, not so much as a co-chair, I'd really like to take you up on that, recognizing that it is a big lift, right? It's a big volunteer lift, and it's an additional volunteer lift for whoever this subcommittee ends up being. It's a lot for them to take on. So thank you for.
Yeah, and I know it's a lot of work for you all to do that. And so obviously I want you to be empowered to make the final decision about who you choose to you know, choose on your board. But in terms of getting people and getting the word out, happy to help with that, and happy to help with yeah, heavy lifting that goes out with community involvement. So yeah, thanks for letting me talk. That's all.
Oh, of course. Yeah. And just, I mean, on that note, I just want to sort of bring us back to the, oh boy, the delicacy isn't exactly the right word, but just maybe the thoughtfulness that we want to engage in community engagement. And to make clear that we are the pub, we are, you know, a separate community board of volunteers, and we are sort of outreaching on behalf of ourselves, like, as opposed to, or not so much opposed, but just different from, right, the city and the city staff. And I'm not talking so much about commissioners' staff, but, you know, the city has their outreach and their recruitment. And anyway, or I shouldn't say recruitment, their outreach and their engagement processes, and their staff that work on that. And it's just been a little bit of a delicate, I don't know, dance in a way for us as a board to do kind of our own community outreach. So anyway, I guess I'm just saying we will want help navigating that. And Goldan, your offer of commissioner staff, I think that's one thing I can see that it would be really helpful to have your sort of expertise and guidance on when we're doing outreach on behalf of us as a pub and a volunteer board. We just want to be really distinct that we are not trying to, duplicate or anything, the outreach that the city and the city as staff, engagement staff do. And that can be a little bit tricky is all I'm saying. So yeah, okay. Thanks a million for all that. Let's thanks for those thoughts, to be continued in July. And let's go to a couple announcements before we close. We've heard from Robin on the testimony. Anything more that you wanted to fill in on that, Amy, before we proceed to the other items here?
No, not on the
Okay.
testimony. I haven't sent out the written version, but I will today. So just Karen and Robin both reviewed it and made their changes, and so I will get that off today. We've already talked about the co-chair volunteers nominations, and again, just reach out to me, happy to chat, and I will send out a reminder email as well, because anybody who's interested will want to announce that before the meeting on July 11th. You also received email from me regarding the current, the stipend for the past year, and apologies for the delay in processing on that, obviously with staffing and then other policy stuff internally to the city. It's been delayed a bit, but trying to get that process. So if you have not seen the email, please look for that, because I'm trying to get that turned around pretty quickly. And if you have questions as well, please do give me a call. And then I mentioned this earlier, but had it on the announcement slide as well, just to make sure that people were aware that Water Bureau had let us know that they're going to council on June 28th with some reports to council related to the filtration plant. And there is a June 30th land use hearing with Multnomah County. And so those are some of the big items related to a pretty large project that you all are tracking. So again, the goal will be to get some updates to you all as soon as agenda allows for that. So it sounds like maybe we won't have time for that on the 11th. So it may be early August. I'll loop back with the Bureau staff to find out if there's updates that need to happen before then. I'll see what we can just make sure that we forward you in writing regarding the reports and other things that are going to council. And then we can figure out how that works into your upcoming agendas.
Great, thanks, Amy. And my closing announcement is a big fat warm hug and thank you to our departing pub members, Tom Lipton and Teresa Huang, and to our stalwart ex officio members, Sarah Messier and Joe. Thanks so much for all you have brought and brought to and carried on your shoulders over the last 3 years in the case of Teresa and Tom. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot, and your contributions will live on, and we'll do our best to build on what you brought, and yeah, carry it forward to the next board, and hope that you come back many times as public observers of how the board is doing, and maybe consider coming back to the board as members at some time in the future when the time's right to you. So I just want to say thank you to everyone, and thanks for your support to everyone in my role as co-chair over the past, I think, year and a half, something like that. Year and a half. That it's been an honor. yeah, just want to say thank you for your support all that time. And we'll see y'all on, yeah, July 11th, although I'm a little tentative on July 11th, but I hope to see you all on July 11th. And certainly in August, if not then. Any closing words, Lorraine?
I just want to thank you, Karen, for guiding us or guiding me, particularly as a new board member over the last few months. I think it's about a year, but it doesn't feel like that. And I acknowledge all that you've done in this. You provided me, created a place where I could get my legs under me. And I appreciate that. And I just want to thank you for that.
You are most welcome. I'm glad to know that I was helpful in that regard. All right. Well, have a wonderful afternoon all. Go grab some lunch and meeting adjourned.